Arena Singleton in Standard. It is my favorite format on Arena, and until we get Brawl, it's the closest that we're going to get to being able to play Commander on Arena. I've played the format a lot, and today I want to share with you my favorite black cards to play in Singleton and the strategies that I play behind the color. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. Today we are going to talk about black cards in Arena Singleton. Before we do that, if you would do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and tell a friend about our channel. It really helps us out. Let's talk about some Singleton. So before we get going, and as I've done with all of these monocolor Singleton deck guides, I want to give you a few caveats that I gave myself while I was choosing this list. First of all, these cards were picked in a vacuum. These cards do not specifically synergize with any one strategy or any one line of play. These were more picked as my choices for some of the most powerful cards in black for Singleton on curve. So as such, there are no gold cards in this list, and the artifacts have been kept to a minimum unless I think the color itself needs some supplemental help from an artifact. And as always, you can use this deck list straight up. The list is in the description below. You can copy, paste it as a ready-to-go deck, or you can use this list as more of an inspiration for some of the black cards that you might have forgotten to put into your Singleton list that's got more colors than just black. So let's get into the deck. You can see it down below here at the 1 cost slot. We've got Gutterbones. This card is like Reassembling Skeleton, except it's got 2 power on it and it's only 1 mana. I'm a huge fan of Gutterbones as just a recurable threat that you can sacrifice if you need to, and it just keeps getting back, coming back, and becoming some kind of chump blocker that your opponents can never get rid of unless they exile it. Deadweight is going to help us clear the board of those early threats or anything with a 2 or less. Mana dorks, things that you really just want to get rid of but you don't want to use a Vraska's Contempt on. Duress is going to be huge for us. It's going to get that pesky spell or Planeswalker out of their hand. Moving into the 2-drop slot, Direfleet Poisoner. Direfleet Poisoner is a card that I've come around on recently. I used to not be a huge fan of it because it's definitely not easy to trigger that second value. I don't want to build a Pirates tribal deck. I want to build a black good stuff deck, essentially. And when it enters the battlefield, target pirate you control gets +1/+1 and gains death touch until end of turn. More often than not, I use this as a surprise blocker. This is a whoopsie trick that I'm able to play, block their big threat. Sorry, your Carnage Tyrant is now dead. Next up, we got Dusk Legion Zealot. Zealot is great. It's a cantrip 1/1 blocker that's essentially going to be a chump blocker, or it can help you trigger your sacrifice a creature additional costs to any spells. Move down to Freebooters, one of my personal favorite cards in black, especially for Singleton. It's going to get that spell out of their hand temporarily that you don't want them to use right now, and can really help us win the game. Knight of Malice is a possible sideboard card. It does have hexproof from white, but being a 3/2 first striker in a format that is very strong for white, and so you're gonna see white decks played, Knight of Malice gets us some value. Orzhov Enforcer is one that would be a first cut for me if there's some kind of fun other card that you're really interested in playing, but I do like that it's a 1/2 death toucher, essentially removal spell that replaces itself. I would play a spell that said destroy target creature and give yourself a 1/1 flying spirit. I would play that spell, and so I play Orzhov Enforcer. Priest of the Forgotten God, super strong. You've seen it in Standard. Sacrificing 2 creatures. We've already talked about some of the ones that we have that are great sacrifice targets. Target player loses 2 life, is going to sacrifice a creature. You add 2 mana and draw a card. It's just so much value if you can get the ability off. Seekers Squire is huge for when it comes into play and can be a sack target in a color that doesn't really have a lot of go get the right lands that you need. This is a card that can help you clear the lands and get to your more powerful spells, or clear cards out of the lands that you need to get. Gules Bloodfest. This is one of my favorites, especially for a long going game, for a grindy game. This is a card that is going to keep your hand full the entire time and then eventually maybe flip and gain you some life back. I'll tell you, I don't often flip Gules Bloodfest because I'm a huge fan of greed effects. in MTG, and Gules Bloodfest plays like one of my favorite EDH commanders, which is Erebos, where you pay 2 life, draw a card. I'm gonna always run an effect like that. Cast Down to remove non-legendaries. Moment of Craving again to deal with smaller creatures, and you gain 2 life at instant speed. Midnight Reaper is going to again drain us, and we draw a card for any creature that we lose. Pestilent Spirit is huge. It's a menace death toucher, so they're going to have to lose 2 creatures to block this, or you're going to be able to use it as a death toucher that kills whatever creature you don't want to deal with. Plaguecrafter, in a deck that's got a lot of sacrifice targets, this can be a very valuable card for us to help get rid of a creature on their side that we can't specifically target. Ruin Raider, again, this is another one of those effects where we're going to pay life to keep our hand full and hopefully just overwhelm our opponent. We know that we're going to sacrifice our life total, and so against a burn deck, some of those kind of cards lose value, but in a game like Singleton, where value is going to be necessary throughout the entire length of the game, which can go long, Ruin Raider is going to be huge for stuff like that. Isareth the Awakener. Isareth is going to get creature cards back from your graveyard and back onto the battlefield. This is a huge one. Again, it's a possible removal spell if you just need a 3-cost death-touching blocker, or she's going to help you bring back your stuff from the dead and just get more value out of it. Dreadshade. This is a card that works really well in the mono black deck, but you'll probably want to pull out if you go to a multicolor version with black included. Dreadshade is a 3-cost 3/3 that's just going to pump up. This card has won me games. This card is huge blocked. Carnage Tyrants, it becomes an 8/8 for 5 mana. Suddenly Carnage Tyrant doesn't look so huge. Murder, straight up destruction. Jozu Vest, this is another great one. 4/5, Menacer for 4, or if you do have the 10 mana, you can late game absolutely super go wide and blow your opponent out. Ravenous Chupacabra, super value, leaves a 2/2 bear behind and gets to destroy a creature. Spawn of Mayhem is one of the finishers in this deck. Spawn of Mayhem is one of my personal favorite cards in Standard right now. It's going to do damage at the beginning of each upkeep, and if you have 10 or less, it's going to start getting bigger. Dark Bargain is one of my, I'm a huge fan of this card. It's kind of a sleeper card, but you do get to, at instant speed, you get to look at the top three cards, put 2 in your hand, 1 in your graveyard, deals 2 damage to you. I like that it's instant speed. I don't know that I would play this card if it wasn't, but because you can do it EOT if they didn't play something that you wanted to murder or to cast down, then you can, help refill your hand and get the cards that you need. Ill-Gotten Inheritance. You've seen videos on our channel on Ill-Gotten Inheritance. This is one that's just going to slowly bleed your opponent. If you can just keep the board clear and their threats not coming at your face, Ill-Gotten is just going to bleed them out and you're going to win the game very slowly. Also, be sure to note that once you get them down to 4 or within range, you can pay another 6, sack the whole thing, and do an 8-point life swing of you going up 4 and them going down. Mastermind's Acquisition. We're going to come back to this card because we do have 9 cards in the sideboard that can be used as a target, but this versatility on this card is going to be huge for us because we're going to get to go through our library and pick the specific card we need at that time, or we're going to get to go to our sideboard and choose something even more specific that we need at that time. Vraska's Contempt. Exile a creature, planeswalker, gain 2 life, straight up. Blade Juggler, card advantage, and it leaves a 3/2 behind. You're going to probably want to target Spectacle for this one, but we've got some early creatures, so we've got some ways for you to possibly get in for that 1 damage. Play this for 3, draw a card, lose a life. Doom Whisperer, this is another finisher, and you can surveil at instant speed. That's just huge. Vampire Sovereign, I love this. It's like Rhino from back in the day. 3/4 flyer that does a 6-point life swing when you come into play for 5, 3 up on our side, 3 down on theirs. Yeah, we'll take that. Rise from the Grave, if we can happen to kill a huge creature on their side or one of ours gets aced, we can return it straight onto the battlefield for 5 mana. Just straight up. That's huge. Eldest Reborn, each opponent sacks a creature, then they discard a card, then you get to Rise from the Grave. I love having this on 2 different cards in the deck. Deadly Visit, 5 mana to destroy a creature and surveil 2, pretty solid. Demon Lord, great finisher, refills your hand, deals some damage to you, but that's a theme in our deck. Actually, now that we've gone through and we've seen all of the life loss possible costs for cards, you might even want to play some more life gain in this deck. I'll tell you, a real good combo color for black is white. Orzhov decks in this format are very, very strong because you can just kind of slowly bleed. Do these 3, 6, and 9-point life swings just on the play of a creature, they go up, we go up 2, they go down 2. That's a great strategy for this format. Haunt of Hightower. I'm not super sure about this card, but it was the box topper, you know, promo card when you bought a set of this, when you bought a big collection of this set, boosters. And so I wanted to play it. If we can untap with it and it attacks, it automatically becomes a 4/4 flyer with lifelink. If we can kill anything in the meantime, it's going to become, you know, even possibly bigger. So I'm interested to see. I've got a playtest with this card, and I'll get back to you on Haunt of Hightower and Singleton. Final finisher on this is Lotleth Giant. Lotleth Giant is going to deal 1 damage straight up for each creature card in our graveyard. So if it gets to the point where we just need a finisher or a big 6/5, here's 7 mana for quite a large one. It is a giant. We're also running Memorial to Folly. You can see it right there. You can see it up top, right up here above me. Memorial to Folly. Oh, I've talked about these Dominaria lands in each of the monocolor Singleton deck videos that I've done. The black one I'm a huge fan of. Paying 3 to return a creature from your graveyard to your hand, that's pretty huge. I like that effect a lot, and you know, it's helpful to draw that in the end of the game when you've already got 10 mana on the field, but you've got a lot of creatures in the graveyard versus just another basic swamp. Real quick, let's talk about the sideboard that I've got here for the Mastermind's acquisition. Walk the Plank is a good 2 mana straight up destroy as long as it's not a merfolk, so it's very specific, but we can go get that with Masterminds. Black Blade, if we've got any of our legendary creatures on the battlefield, then we'll be able to attach that to them very, very quickly because the activation cost on it will be very low, but we want to make sure that we've got one of our 3 or 4 legendaries already on the field. Cry the Carnarium if we happen to just be against a big token deck and we need to wipe it down. Same thing with Golden Demise. If we have Ascension, this gives us even more value, so we can kind of pick if we need them to all exile or if we want to ascend and not hit our stuff. Plague Mare, another can't be blocked by white creatures, so against a white deck it's huge, and also against a token strategy. If it's tokens and it's white, you know, we might go for Plague Mare over these 2 cards. Then we've got Ritual of Soot. If we don't have a lot of 3 converted or less on the battlefield, and they do, again, it's another option for that board wipe that's going to get us back into that game. Karn, I don't really know why I have this in there. It's a walker that I happen to have a card of, and it could be a good target if you need some, you know, creatures to be blocking stuff, or if you possibly just want to go use it to dig cards out of your library and find the right stuff. Gruesome Menagerie, love this card, want to run it in the main deck. However, I think it would be nice when we draw the Mastermind's acquisition to have the versatility of looking at our graveyard first, seeing if we've got a 1 cost, a 2 cost, and a 3 cost, and not having to have it sit in our hand until we can possibly use it. And then after that, just straight up Meteor Golem. If we've got the mana and there's just a permanent, there's some kind of planeswalker on the battlefield that we just need to ace, Meteor Golem is not going to be a bad one to go and grab. So that is the Mono Black deck tech. I definitely appreciate everybody watching. Let me know what cards you're running differently if you have a Mono Black Singleton deck, and let me know which of these cards you might be running in your other decks, in your 2-3 color decks. Singleton's my favorite format and I love talking about it. We're streaming every Sunday night and Wednesday night. Other than that, I'm tapped out. New videos a lot. Catch you later.